They surrounded the chamber, but they didn't attack. They watched. One stepped forward, tall, silent. It raised a hand toward Rain. And then it spoke inside his mind. You are one of us now. You could be more. We offer peace. No pain. No lies. Just silence. Rain stepped back. The shadow mark on his chest pulsed harder. For a moment, he was tempted. No war. No fear. No betrayal. Just quiet. But then he looked at Lyra. At Celine. At the faces of the people he loved. And he remembered. He was human. He smiled. No. Rain injected the first vial into his neck. Pain shot through his body. His vision blurred. He fell to his knees. The shadow inside him screamed. But the black lines began to vanish. Smoke poured from his skin. He was winning. Then, with shaking hands, he pulled the second vial. He ran to the ship's engine core. The shadows moved in, but stopped. They knew what he was about to do, and they couldn't stop him. He opened the coolant valve, pushed the vial in. The liquid hissed, and everything exploded in white light. The shadows screamed, louder than before, like 1,000 voices breaking apart. Then, silence. True silence. Later, much later, Lyra and Celine woke up inside a small escape pod. Lex's voice spoke. Emergency pod activated. Captain Carter override. Course set for Earth. One way. Celine looked out the window. Nova 6 was gone. Destroyed in a silent blast of blue light. Rain was gone too. But his voice remained in a final recording. If you're hearing this, I made a choice. One hero doesn't save the world. One hero just chooses not to let it burn. Tell Earth the truth. Tell them we were never alone in the dark. And tell them we're not afraid anymore. One hero, one choice. Space was silent again, but not peaceful. Captain Rain Carter sat alone in the cockpit of the Ember Blade, his hands tight on the controls. The ship was flying back toward the dead station, Nova 6. Not to save anyone this time, not to run, but to finish what he started. Behind him, Lyra and Celine watched quietly. The light in their eyes was dim now, not from fear, but from exhaustion. They had seen too much, lost too much, but they were still standing, still hoping, still human. Rain looked down at his arm. The shadow mark was now spreading in thin black lines across his shoulder, reaching his chest. The AI, Lex, had run 100 scans. There was only one conclusion. The infection is now 63% integrated. Shadow presence is adapting to your thoughts. You are changing. Rain didn't respond. He already knew. He could feel it. In the back of his mind, something whispered. Not in words, but in feelings. Cold, empty, curious, hungry. The station appeared in front of them again, broken, floating in darkness like a forgotten grave. Nova 6, the place that started it all. And now, it was going to end here. They docked without trouble. No shadows came. The station was quiet. Too quiet. Lex, Rain said, track any movement. No life forms detected, but something is awake. They moved quickly. Rain led the way through familiar halls, past broken doors and claw marks. Every wall was a memory. Every shadow could be a trap. Finally, they'd reached level 9, a place that wasn't on the public station map, hidden from the world. A door with no name. Rain scanned his hand. The door opened with a hiss. Inside was a long chamber glowing with pale blue light. And in the center, a sealed vault. The vault had a digital panel. The screen blinked. Enter your code. DNA plus co-mmndkey required. Lyra stepped forward and placed her hand on the scanner. One part down, she said. Lex's voice spoke again. Final key must come from Earth Command, or someone who carries their override. Rain stepped forward. The shadow inside him pulsed. He reached out. The scanner accepted his hand. The vault opened. Inside were 4 small vials. Clear, glowing faintly. Human-compatible shadow neutralizer. Experimental. Lyra picked up 1 vial. This must be it. The cure. Rain took 1. Then 2. Lex interrupted. Warning. Vials unstable. Must be used soon. Each dose only works once. Celine's voice trembled. How many are there? Rain answered quietly. 4 vials. 3 of us. Lyra stared at him. You're infected. He nodded. And I'm going to take 2. Silence. Lyra looked shocked. Rain. Celine stepped back, confused. Rain's voice was low. Calm. I'm going to take 1 dose to stop the shadow. The second, I'm going to inject directly into the ship's engine coolant. Spread it through the system. Lex spoke quickly. Warning. That will release the anti-shadow agent through the entire station. It will kill every shadow cell, but also destroy the ship's engine. Rain nodded. Exactly. Lyra's eyes widened. We'll be stuck. Rain met her gaze. I'm not leaving this place alive. Celine shouted. No, there has to be another way. There isn't, Rain said. If I leave with this thing inside me, I could infect Earth. I could infect millions. That's what they wanted. He took a deep breath. I won't give them what they want. Suddenly, movement. The shadows returned, crawling from the vents, falling from the ceiling. Rain frowned. Is it alive? Unclear, but it is growing. Very slowly. Celine, still pale and quiet, whispered, They'd never let you go, Rain. If they touch you, they leave something behind. Rain stood. Then we need answers. Real ones. No more guesses. He walked to the back of the ship, toward the encrypted black box log system. Every mission file, hidden truth, and locked communication was stored there. Rain had always followed orders, but this time he was done playing by the rules. Lex, he said, I want full access. Unlock everything they hid about Nova 6. I know there's more. Password required. Rain paused. Then he spoke 3 words. Carter Protocol Alpha. A secret code, only known to him and 1 other person. The system unlocked. And the truth began. A secret video file opened. A familiar face appeared. Admiral Sloan, former leader of Earth's Outer Colonies Defense. A man Rain once trusted. This is Sloan. Personal log. If you're seeing this, you know too much. Nova 6 was never about science. It was a test. A trap. A way to study shadow life forms without bringing them to Earth. We knew they were dangerous, but we needed to understand them. Humanity's enemies were growing. The aliens feared the shadows. That made them useful. So we left people there to watch what happened. The children survived longer than expected, especially the 2 sisters. One of them might be immune. Rain's blood ran cold. Celine. They had been watching her like an experiment. Lyra covered her mouth. We were lab rats, not survivors. Sloan continued. We placed trackers in the children's food supply. We blocked most of their signals, but we let 1 signal out every few years, just enough to draw attention. We needed a hero, someone the shadows wouldn't kill, someone the public would believe, someone we could use. We chose Rain Carter. Rain stared in horror. They used me. Lex confirmed it. Captain, your ship's launch order was authorized by Earth Command. A silent command was hidden in the distress signal. They wanted you to go. Lyra stepped back. You weren't supposed to save us. You were supposed to bring the infection home. Suddenly, alarm screamed. Alert! Unknown energy surge in medical bay. Rain turned and ran. In the medbay, the black mark on his arm was glowing now, faint but alive. It spread in tiny veins beneath the skin. He grabbed a scalpel. "No," Lyra said, rushing in. "Cutting it out won't help. You'll bleed out, and it might already be deeper than skin." Celine looked terrified. "What if it reaches your brain?" Rain looked at them both. "I can't let this thing control me." Then Lex spoke again. "Captain, I found another file. Buried deep. From someone. Unexpected. A new message opened. This one was from Lyra, recorded years ago. But she looked different. Angry, desperate, tired. If Rain ever finds this, I'm sorry. I found out the truth too late. They knew I was immune. That's why they kept us here. I thought sending a message would save us. But maybe it only doomed him. Rain, if you came and you brought the shadow with you, there's only one way to stop it. You'll need the vaccine. It's hidden inside Nova 6, Level 9, locked in the command vault." Rain shouted, "No, we just escaped that place." Lyra looked at him. She made that message just before the shadows caught her. She must have hidden it there. Celine's voice trembled. "We have to go back." Rain slammed his fist against the console. "They used me. Lied to me. Let my sister suffer, and now I'm infected with something that could kill us all." He looked out the window. Nova 6 was far now, but not gone. Lex said, "Course set back to Nova 6. Rain nodded slowly. "Set it." The ember blade turned. Its broken lights flickered. The shadow inside Rain pulsed with silent hunger. But his eyes were focused. He was no longer just a hero. He was a man on a mission for the truth. And he was going back into the dark. Celine screamed. "They're learning." Lyra grabbed her wrist. "Keep moving. Don't stand still in the dark." They ran. Rain used his last 2 light grenades to clear the next hallway. One burst revealed a dozen crawling shapes retreating into the ceiling. The shadows weren't running anymore. They were watching, planning, waiting. Finally, they reached the engine room. The ember blade was connected to the docking ring, still covered in claw marks. The ship's outer hull had been pierced, but the engine pod looked untouched. Rain entered the override chamber and pulled open the panel. Sparks flew. Burned wires. Cracked tubes. The override lever was stuck halfway. He groaned. "Lex, status." "Manual override jammed. Engine reset possible, but power surge may attract attention." Rain took a deep breath, then pulled the lever with both hands. The ship's engines roared back to life. Emergency lights blinked. The docking ring hummed. The ember blade's voice returned weakly. "Welcome back, Captain Carter." They did it. But the moment they turned around, all the lights went out. Pitch black. Then came the whispers, not out loud, inside their minds. "You shine too bright. Let us in. We can make the pain stop. No more running. Just sleep." Celine screamed and clutched her head. "They're inside again." Rain grabbed her and held tight. "Fight them. They lie." Lyra pulled out a flare stick and cracked it open. The red glow pushed back the darkness. For a moment, the voices stopped. Then came the sound of metal creaking. A shadow walked into view, fully formed. 7 feet tall. No face. But its shape was almost human now. It spoke. Not in words, but in feelings. Rain felt sadness, anger, hunger, and one word. Remember. He stepped forward. "What do you mean, remember? What are you?" The creature raised a hand and touched the wall. A projection appeared. A memory. Rain saw. Earth. But not modern Earth. Ancient Earth. Primitive. Before light. Before fire. And in the dark caves, the shadows were there. Watching early humans. Feeding on fear. The shadows weren't new. They were ancient. Celine gasped. They've always been with us. Lex confirmed it. Theory confirmed. Entities are ancient, possibly born from dark matter fields, drawn to human evolution, hidden in myths, legends, shadows under the bed. Rain stared at the creature. You were there when we were weak. The shadow leaned closer. And now, you are strong. Too strong. Rain looked at Lyra and Celine. Then he raised his gun. You're right. We are. And fired. The flare round hit the shadow in the chest. It exploded in light. The creature screamed, a mind-breaking sound, and dissolved into dust. But more were coming. Rain shouted, "Run to B ship." They sprinted down the corridor, dodging claws and crawling shapes. Rain fired wildly. Lyra threw a flare behind them. Celine slipped, but Rain pulled her up. They jumped into the ember blade just as the last emergency doors closed behind them. The shadows smashed against the ship, but they couldn't enter. Rain rushed to the controls. Lex, full thrust. Get us out of here. Engines online. Lifting off in 3, 2, 1. The ship blasted away from the station, leaving the monsters behind. Nova 6 shrank in the distance, glowing in the fire of its own dying systems. They had escaped. But something still didn't feel right. As they sat in silence, catching their breath, Celine whispered, "Rain, look at your arm." He looked down. A small black mark was on his skin. It moved, just a little. The betrayal code. Captain Rain Carter stared at his arm. The black mark on his skin was small, just a circle of moving shadow. But it pulsed like it was alive. It wasn't a burn. It wasn't dirt. And it definitely wasn't natural. Lyra leaned closer, worry on her face. "Rain, what is that?" "I don't know," he said. But deep inside, he had a terrible feeling. Something from Nova 6 had come with them. The ember blade moved through space, far away from the dead station. The engines were weak, the hull damaged, but the ship was flying. Lex, the AI, spoke softly. "Captain, the mark on your arm. I ran a scan. The material is not biological. It's energy-based. Same frequency as the shadow creatures." The trio moved again, this time toward the central reactor core deep in the heart of Nova 6. The shadows followed them in silence, crawling through vents, watching from ceilings, always just out of reach. One wrong move, and they'd be surrounded. On the way, they passed a large, shattered window. Outside, stars shimmered, and one nearby moon reflected light onto the station ball. That's when they saw it. A shadow, standing fully in view for the first time. It looked like a tall, stretched figure, its body made of smoke and liquid black glass. Its face had no mouth, no eyes. But Rain could feel it staring at him. Then it spoke, directly into his mind. "You were not meant to return. This place belongs to us now. The silence is ours." Rain gritted his teeth. "Then let's break the silence." They reached the core. Lex activated the systems. The control screen asked for a final command. Rain placed his hand on the scanner. "Pulse sequence ready. Warning, blast will damage all systems in range." Lyra looked at him. "Once we do this, we run. Fast." Celine added, "We only get one shot." Rain nodded. "Do it." The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The shadows were already coming, crawling down the walls, melting through the ceiling. 7, 6. Rain raised his weapon. Lyra held Celine close. Lights flickered. 5, 4. They could hear the voices in their minds again. "You do not belong in the dark." 3, 2, 1. Puleas. A wave of blue light burst through the entire station. Every shadow in sight screamed, a sound that shook the metal walls, and vanished into smoke and sparks. The silence returned. But the ship was also dead. Rain pulled his sisters into the emergency elevator. "We're not done yet," he said. They had survived. But the station was falling apart. And now, with no power, escape would be even harder. But he had come this far. He wouldn't leave without them. Shadows in the dark. Silence. That was all that remained after the energy pulse. The pulse had ripped through Nova 6 like a wave of lightning. It burned through the walls, shocked every system, and most importantly, chased the shadows away. But it also came with a price. Captain Rain Carter stared at the control screen. The words blinked in red. Primera isoistiums OFF line. They cube power. 3%. His ship, the Ember Blade, had gone dark. The emergency lights on the station were barely alive. The reactor core was now fried. And worst of all, they weren't alone. Rain, Lyra, and Celine sat in the corner of an elevator shaft, catching their breath. Sparks dropped from broken wires. The walls were hot from the blast. The shadows were gone. For now. Celine hugged her knees, trembling. Are they really gone? Lyra shook her head. No, just hiding. They never stay gone for long. Rain stood and checked his weapon. We bought time. Nothing more. Lex, his AI, whispered in his ear. Her voice was weaker now. Captain, ship status. Critical. Life support down. Hull breach on deck 2. Main thrusters offline. Rain clenched his fists. Is there any way to restart the ship? Only from the outside. Manual override near the engine coils. Great, Rain muttered. So I need to walk through a broken, shadow-infested station to fix the engine. With a flashlight. Lyra looked at him. We'll go with you. Rain shook his head. No, I go alone. If something happens to me. At least you two survive. Celine looked up, eyes wide. But we don't want to survive without you. Rain froze. He had no words for that. He just nodded. Okay. Then we stay together. One last ride. They moved through dark tunnels, stepping carefully over fallen pipes and shattered glass. Nova 6 now felt like it was watching them, like the very walls were alive. Lex spoke again. Captain, something's wrong. I'm detecting movement, but only in your shadows. Rain stopped. Come again. The floor, the walls, they aren't just reflecting your shadows. They're growing. Rain looked down. His shadow was moving. Just a little, not following his light. He took one step. The shadow didn't move. It stayed still. Then it smiled. Rain fired at the wall instantly, and the light burned the shadow back into shape. The fake shadow vanished like smoke. The last survivors. The door bent inward like soft metal. Captain Rain Carter stood between his sisters and the thing outside. His pulse was racing. Sweat ran down the side of his face, even in the cold. Behind him, Lyra grabbed Celine's hand and whispered, Don't look. Just listen to me. The shadow outside scraped its long limbs against the steel, not rushing, not breaking through. Just waiting, watching, like it wanted them to know it was there. Rain raised his plasma gun. Lex, he said, voice steady, is there more than one? Scanning. Yes. 3 life forms. Non-human. Unknown class. 0 heat signature. Approaching from 2 directions. Lyra's voice cracked. They've been hunting us for years. They never stop. They don't need to eat. They don't need to sleep. They just want us. The lights in the cryo shelter flickered. The shadows were draining power. Rain pulled a small light grenade from his belt. He pressed the button. Time to move. He tossed it toward the door. A blinding flash lit up the hall. The shadows screamed, not like a human. It was a sound made of thoughts, like a whisper inside their heads that felt sharp and cold. The sisters covered their ears. Celine whimpered, It's inside my head. Rain grabbed their hands. We go now. Move. They ran. through dark corridors and broken doors, down emergency ladders, past signs that once welcomed life. Science for the stars, family first, Nova 6, a new tomorrow. Now those words meant nothing. The station was a tomb. They stopped at a sealed room. Rain scanned the code. It opened with a hiss. Inside was Engineering Control Room Delta, a place Rain once knew from his early visits. It was still alive with weak power, full of screens and data logs. He shut the door and locked it. Safe, for now. The sisters collapsed onto the floor, breathing hard. Celine looked pale, shaking. They talk to me when I sleep, sometimes even when I'm awake. They say things that make no sense. Rain knelt beside her. What do they say? She stared into space. Her voice was quiet. They say, humans are loud, humans shine, but stars must go dark again. Rain and Lyra exchanged a glance. Lyra spoke softly. They came from deep space, far beyond anything humans explored. They were trapped in crystals. A mining crew found them. Thought it was just strange rock. They'd brought it here. Celine added, the crystals broke. They got out. Rain stood and walked to the control panel. They're not just monsters. They think. They learn. Lex's voice came from his earpiece. Captain, I have accessed the old logs. Do you wish to know the truth? Rain sighed. Play it. A video began. An old commander appeared on the screen. Tired eyes. Heavy voice. Project Silent Star. Top secret. Goal. Study deep space life forms found near black hole clusters. Life forms made of living darkness. Test results. Dangerous. Unstable. Staff began vanishing. Security teams wiped out. We lost control. HQ ordered full lockdown. No rescue. Full denial. All survivors to be considered expendable. Rain clenched his fists. They knew, he said. They left you here on purpose. Lyra nodded. We tried to send messages. The shadows would block most of them, but sometimes we get one through. Just one. Yours. Rain looked at her. And I came. Suddenly, the screen buzzed. Lex spoke quickly. New alert. The Ember Blade is under attack. Hull damage. External life forms detected. Rain cursed. They're after the ship. They don't want us to escape. He opened a second screen. The shadows were crawling on the outside of his ship. Slow, careful, like spiders on glass. The ship's defense systems were trying to shock them off, but power was dropping fast. Ship power down to 47%. Lyra stood. We have to get to the core. The only way to push them back is with a full station pulse. Electromagnetic blast. Rain frowned. The pulse could damage the ship too. But it might save us, Lyra said. Celine whispered, or it could wake more of them. Rain looked at both sisters. He had come all this way. He wasn't leaving them here. Then we make it count, he said. We do it together. Echoes of the lost. Darkness surrounded Captain Rain Carter as he stepped deeper into the cold heart of Nova 6. His flashlight beam cut through layers of dust and silence, revealing empty halls, broken glass, and memories left behind. Everything was untouched, just like the day it all went wrong. 20 years of silence. And now, a whisper. Are you real? The voice still echoed in his mind. It had sounded small, female, human, alive. Rain didn't know if it was Lyra or Celine, but someone was down here, and he would not leave without them. His boots echoed as he moved slowly down the rusted corridor. Old signs on the walls pointed toward Habitation Block B, once the living quarters of families on the station. Rain passed rooms with open doors, torn bedsheets, scattered toys, family photos stuck to walls with cracked tape. He stopped at one room. A child's name was scratched into the door in bright colors. Celine's room. The door was half open. He pushed it gently. Inside, The room looked like it belonged to a happy little girl. Stickers on the wall, a drawing of stars, a picture of two sisters hugging, and on the desk, a diary. Rain picked it up. The pages were stained and faded, but one was clear. Day 5. I miss Mama and Papa. Lyra says we have to hide now. She says it's not safe. She says the shadows are real. I'm scared. Rain closed the diary slowly. Lex, he whispered, record everything. This was never just a shutdown. Recording in progress, the AI replied. Suddenly, the flashlight dimmed. Static filled his ear. They're here. Rain froze. Lex, say again. That wasn't me, the AI replied. A bang echoed from the corridor behind him. Then soft footsteps. Rain turned fast, gun in hand. Who's there? No answer. He stepped into the hallway, aiming the light toward the sound. There, at the end of the hall, a shadow moved. Not walking. Crawling. It disappeared through a wall vent with a scrape of metal. Lex spoke again, quietly. Life form detected. Small. Fast. Not human. Rain moved quickly now, following the signal Lex had marked earlier. He reached a large circular door, sealed with a heavy lock. This was the cryo shelter, built for emergencies. It had power. He knocked twice. Silence. Then, a small voice. Rain. He froze. Lyra? The door opened just a little. Inside stood a girl, not a little one anymore. Lyra Carter, now in her late 20s, eyes wide, face pale, hair messy. Behind her, another girl, younger, Celine. Celine hid behind her sister, peeking out, afraid. Rain took off his helmet. His voice broke. I found you. They stared at him for a long second. Then Lyra ran into his arms, tears falling fast. I thought you were dead, she whispered. I thought you were, Rain replied. Celine stepped closer too, still unsure. But then she hugged him from the side. They were all shaking. After so many years, they were together again. Back inside the cryo shelter, Rain sat down with them. The room was dim but safe. Emergency lights glowed orange. Supplies were stacked neatly. These girls had survived with nothing. Lyra gave him water. Her voice was quiet, tired. We waited, every day. For someone to come. No one ever did. Rain looked at her, full of guilt. I didn't know. They said. Everyone was dead. She nodded. They lied. Celine spoke for the first time. They left us here. On purpose. Rain frowned. Why? Lyra looked down. There was an experiment. Something terrible. The crew tried to stop it, but it was already alive. Rain leaned forward. What was it? She whispered one word. The shadows. She told him everything. A hidden lab under the station. Secret tests on energy-based life forms found in deep space. The scientists called them dark sentients, creatures made of shadow, feeding on emotion, fear, and energy. Then one day, the containment broke. People started disappearing. Some were taken. Some were changed. The government knew. Instead of rescuing them, they locked the station down. To hide the truth. To bury the experiment. But Lyra and Celine had survived. They hid. They ran. They listened to the walls. They learned how to avoid the creatures. They hate light, Lyra said. And they speak in thoughts. Rain was silent for a long time. Then he stood up. I'm getting you out of here. Suddenly, alarms screamed through the station. The cryo shelter lights turned red. Intrusion detected. Lex's voice crackled. Rain looked at the door. A shadow passed across the window. Not human. Not machine. Something else. Celine backed away, holding Lyra's hand tightly. They found us, she whispered. Rain drew his weapon. Stay behind me. The door creaked. Metal bent. A growl, not a sound, but a vibration in the air, shook the walls. The shadows were here. And this time, they weren't hiding. Into the void. Space was quiet. Too quiet. Captain Rain Carter stared out from the cockpit window of the Ember Blade as the ship left the moon colony far behind. Ahead was only darkness. Endless stars scattered like cold diamonds. And somewhere deep inside that silence, the Nova 6 space station waited. The ship moved fast, but not fast enough for Rain. His hands were tight on the controls, jaw clenched. His eyes looked tired, but inside him, fire had returned. He wasn't just flying toward a lost station. He was flying toward his sister. Back in the day, Rain was called the Flame of Humanity. He was brave, smart, and quick to act. People followed him, but those days were gone. Now, the only voice he heard was the ship's AI, Lex, speaking gently from the control panel. "Captain, we are approaching the outer gravity ring of Sector 19. Nova 6's last known location is ahead." Rain nodded. "Any updates on the hidden file?" "Decryption complete. Plain file now." A soft voice filled the cockpit. "If anyone hears this, please don't leave. They told us help was coming, but no one came. We are still here. I don't know how long we can last." It was Lyra, but her voice wasn't like before. It was older and tired. She sounded scared, but brave. Still fighting. Rain's heart pounded. "Lex, when was this recorded?" Timestamp: 48 hours ago. Rain felt cold. That meant she was still alive. At least 2 days ago. Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered. The screens turned black for 3 seconds. Then came a loud buzzing noise, like a swarm of insects inside the wires. "Warning," Lex said, her voice shaking. "System interference detected. Unknown source." "From Nova 6, Rain asked. "Confirmed. An energy wave has connected to our ship. Untraceable. Artificial, but not human." Rain stood up and looked at the ship's core monitor. It showed a strange pattern, a black symbol forming in circles, like a spiral. It wasn't military. It wasn't science. It felt alive. "What the hell is this?" Rain whispered. Suddenly, the main screen showed a flash of static and a shadow. Not a clear shape, not a face, just a dark figure for less than a second. Then it disappeared. Lex's voice returned, calm but cold. "Something is watching." Rain didn't answer. He just sat back in the pilot chair, breathing slowly. "Let it watch," he said. "I'm not turning back." 3 hours later, the Ember Blade exited hyperspace. Nova 6 stood in the darkness like a silent grave. It was huge, once a proud research station, now broken and floating like a piece of forgotten metal. Lights were off. Parts of the station were missing. And something about it looked wrong. "No response from station," Lex reported. "No lights. No heat. No movement." Rain turned on the ship's external lights. The beam cut through the shadows and hit the station's outer walls. Then he saw it. Scratches. Long, deep marks across the metal, like something had clawed its way across the station. And near the docking bay, a message was written using paint or blood. UULEFTUS. Rain's hand hovered over the controls. His voice was soft. This wasn't just an accident. He docked the ship. The old magnetic lock still worked, surprisingly. As the airlock opened, cold air hit his face like a ghost's breath. Rain stepped inside the station, flashlight in hand, helmet on. Lex stayed active in his earpiece. The inside was worse. Frozen food trays still on tables. Chairs turned over. Lights blinking softly in loops, like people had left in a hurry, or had never left at all. "Any life signs?" Rain asked. "Negative." He walked slowly through the main hallway. Then he saw something on the floor. A teddy bear. Old, dirty, torn. He picked it up and saw a name stitched on the back. Celine. Rain froze again. Celine was Lyra's younger sister, only 5 when the station fell silent. He dropped the toy. They were just kids. Suddenly, his flashlight flickered. A soft sound came from the vent above him. A whisper. "Hello." Rain spun around. "Who's there?" No answer. Then again, softer. "Are you real?" Rain stared into the vent, trying to see. There was movement. A shadow. Then it was gone. "Lex," he said quietly. "Someone's here." Confirmed. New energy signal detected. Human. Faint, but alive. Rain's heart jumped. They're alive. They're really alive. He turned toward the lower level of the station. The map on his screen showed that's where the signal came from. As he walked forward, he passed a wall filled with old photos, families, crew, celebrations. Then he saw one photo. Lyra and Celine. Smiling, holding hands in front of a banner that said, "The future belongs to us." Rain touched the photo gently. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have come sooner." Then he walked into the dark, deeper into Nova 6, the silent signal. In the far corner of the galaxy, there floated an old space station named Nova 6. It was once a place full of life, scientists, engineers, families. But 20 years ago, something terrible happened. No one knew what. One day, all communication stopped. No messages, no answers, just silence. The government declared the station destroyed. No rescue missions were sent. No one cared anymore. Nova 6 was forgotten, completely. But then, something strange happened. A distress signal suddenly came from the lost station. After 20 years of silence, one message was heard. The message was short. It said, "They took everything. We're still alive. Please, help us." No one in the galaxy believed it. They thought it was a mistake, or maybe just an echo from the past. But one man was listening. Captain Rain Carter, a retired human pilot, was living alone on a small moon colony called Delta K7. He once flew the fastest ships in the galaxy. He once led great battles. Now he was just a quiet man with a broken past. Rain sat in his small cabin, fixing a cup of hot drink, when his old radio device beeped. It was dusty, half-broken, and hadn't worked in years. But now it spoke. "They took everything. We're still alive." Rain froze. He knew that voice. It was his younger sister, Lyra. Rain dropped the cup. It shattered on the floor. His hands shook. "This can't be real," he whispered. "She died. They all died." He played the message again. And again. Same voice. Same fear. Same pain. Lyra was on Nova 6 20 years ago, when the station went silent. She was just a teenager. Rain never forgave himself for not being there, for not saving her. Now, after all these years, her voice returned, begging for help. Rain stood still for a long time. Then he walked to his old ship, covered in dust and spider bots. The ship's name was the Ember Blade. It had not flown in 10 years. He touched its cold metal surface. "You ready for one more flight, old girl?" Inside the cockpit, the ship's AI came to life. A soft female voice spoke. "Welcome back, Captain Rain. Systems damaged. Fuel low. Navigation offline." Rain smiled faintly. "Still talking back, huh, Lex? Only when necessary." He loaded the message into the ship's system. The AI paused. "Source: Nova 6. Signal is real. Message is recent. Less than 48 hours old." Rain's eyes narrowed. That meant someone was alive now. He began preparing the ship, cleaning the engines, fixing old wires, updating systems. The work was slow, but his hands moved with purpose. As he worked, old memories came back. Lyra laughing, playing games on the station, telling him stories, drawing stars on paper. He remembered his promise. I'll always come back for you. He broke that promise. Now maybe he could keep it. Later that night, Rain checked the message again. But this time, something new appeared. A file hidden inside the signal. The file was locked, but the name was clear. Lyra_Carter_lastlog.dat. Rain stared at the screen. Lex, can you open it? Encryption is military grade. Cracking in progress. Estimated time: 12 hours. Rain sat in silence. 12 hours until he could hear what his sister said before the darkness. But he couldn't wait any longer. He had already waited 20 years. He powered up the ember blade. The engines roared to life, shaking dust from the walls. Outside, the sky was full of stars, and somewhere out there, Nova 6 was waiting. Before takeoff, the AI spoke again. Warning: recent system logs show interference from Nova 6. Rain frowned. Interference. Unusual signals. Someone, or something, has already connected with this ship. Rain checked the logs. A strange energy spike appeared in his ship's system. 3 hours before he received the message. That shouldn't be possible. Who sent the message before it arrived? Rain didn't care. He only cared about one thing now. He looked at Lyra's name glowing on the screen. His voice was firm now. I'm coming, Lyra. I don't care what's out there. The ember blade lifted off the moon's surface, fire bursting from its engines. Rain Carter, the forgotten hero, headed into the darkness once more. Towards a ghost station. Towards the voice of his sister. Towards the unknown.